And good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Sergeant Rob Derry from the Connecticut State Police. Sergeant, how are you, sir?
Peter, always a pleasure.
Hi, Rob. What's new, buddy?
All's good.
All's good?
All's good. State police are very, very busy this time of year.
Well, then, hey, that's a good thing. That's a good thing, especially with all the kids being back to school, and I'm sure things don't quiet down for you guys.
No, a little bit. Our busy time, especially in this area, is really Memorial Day to Labor Day. Mm-hmm. But even though obviously we're past Labor Day, things are still very busy. You know, the traffic seems like it never stops out here.
No.
And don't forget, we cover 10 towns within the shoreline communities, basically all off of Route 9 and up towards Middletown. So, our troopers are very busy in and out of these towns doing a lot of police work. So it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. No. I always tell people in my line of work, I have never had to worry about having customers because there's always something for us to do, or people calling for something. So
exactly.
So it's very wide ranging, and it's always interesting.
Now, how did you get involved with the state police?
So myself, I always wanted to be a trooper since I was a little kid, like many little kids do. They want to be a fireman, an astronaut, a police officer. I grew up next door to my grandparents. My grandfather was a Connecticut State Trooper for 27 years.
Oh, cool.
And I was about 14 years old when he finally retired from the state police, but I have fond memories of being in his police car and talking to him and seeing him in his uniform. And so that kind of drove me to get involved in law enforcement. And then at the time, back in 1990, you had to be 18 years old to be a police officer, whereas today you have to be 21. So just about 18 and a half, 19 years old, I started taking police exams to try to get on a job as I was going to a local college.
Okay.
And I just turned 20 years old. I got hired by a town police department, the town of East Granby up by Bradley Airport.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I got hired there, went to the local police academy. I graduated the local police academy when I was 20 years old. So I look back on it, I'm like, boy, that was awfully young. But, it matured me, and I did that for 4 years, and then I went to the Bloomfield Police Department for about a year.
Okay.
Before the state police finally finished up their hiring process, and I got selected, and I've been with the state police now for 24 years.
So you've been with them that long?
State police for 24 years, and I'm in my 29th year of law enforcement.
Wow.
With my local police time. So, yeah, it's been a very, very rewarding experience, which is, I think, a good topic for us to talk about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is basically law enforcement recruiting, and I will tell you right now, it's a nationwide issue. Right now is law enforcement recruiting.
Okay.
There's not as many people as there were years ago trying to get into law enforcement. I think a lot of that has to do with many different reasons. Number one, I think the economy is doing a little better about now than it was a few years ago. So there's other jobs available. Number two, there's obviously a big stigma in the social aspects of things with law enforcement, with all the police-related shootings where people think that the police might have inappropriately exercise a use of force, mm-hmm. Which may or may not be the case, but that comes out within the investigation. But people are very quick to rush to judgment on things like that. So, a lot of people see these things on the national news front of riots, protesting, police use of force. And I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to be bothered with that.
No.
And now in law enforcement, everything is about cameras. So we've had cameras in our state police cruisers for about the last 15 years. So we've been using cameras for a long time. Our department is right now, as we speak, moving over to body-worn cameras. So we are starting to transition to have those as well. So, I'm sure there's a large portion of the population who may be interested in law enforcement, but they're like, why would I want to go to work having all these cameras on me all the time? It feels like you're always under the microscope.
Exactly.
But with that being said, even with all my years on now, I still feel like I've never worked a day in my life, because to me this is not a job.
No.
It's a way of life. I thoroughly enjoy it. And if I had to go back and relive my life, I would do it the same way I did it today.
Really?
Yeah, it's been very, very rewarding. Not every day is awesome. There's a lot of days that you go home and you're just like, oh my God. You see a lot of negative things.
Yep.
But you also see some positive things, when you're in a position where you're able to help people and actually see the outcome of us helping somebody, whether it be something as simple as pulling up alongside somebody on the side of the highway and helping them change their flat tire. In their world, they can't believe we were there to help them out and do it. In our world, it's just like, it's another day.
Right.
But it's a minor example, but it's just, you never know what each day is going to bring. In law enforcement, you're not going to be the richest guy in the room, but you probably won't be the poorest either. You can do okay, you can provide for your family, and it's just a great opportunity, especially with the state police. In the state of Connecticut, we obviously the state police is the largest law enforcement agency in the state.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we have right now about maybe 930 troopers statewide, which is a little low for us. We should be around 1,200. But again, the recruiting issue kind of hurts us a little bit. But even with that 930, we still do a lot of things. There's still a lot of opportunity, and it's really a phenomenal career.
Is it?
It is.
Now, as far as your career, you've been with the Connecticut State Police. Not only where you've been in the barracks and you've been in the troop where you are now. What other troops have you been in?
So upon graduation of the State Police Training Academy, I was assigned to Troop L in Litchfield,
okay,
which is in the northwest section of the state.
Yes.
Beautiful country.
Is it?
Beautiful country. I've never been up there until I got assigned there.
Ah.
And I was with my field training officer in the first couple of days of training, and she brought me up to the town of Kent. Now, anybody who has never been to the town of Kent, which I never have.
I haven't either.
It feels like you're in upstate New York. It's all mountains, and even the color of the road is like a light gray. It doesn't even feel like it's Connecticut.
Really?
It's very,
cool.
Very rural, a lot of farmlands, beautiful area. But I worked up there for a year and a half, and then I moved from West Hartford down to the town of Guilford,
mm-hmm.
and I was reassigned to the Bridgeport barracks, which is 100% highway patrol. So it's like going from night to day. It's being in Litchfield, where it's very rural with really no highway,
yeah,
to going down to Bridgeport, and you're just dealing with constant car accidents and chaos, and the I-95 section in Fairfield County, basically from New Haven down to New York, has been mentioned as one of the most deadliest highways in the country. Right. And it's definitely one of the busiest. We all know that if you go down I-95 going to New York, it's inevitable you're going to hit traffic somewhere.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, 95 was put into place in 1958. Mm-hmm. That's when I-95 was put into place. So that's many, many years ago. And the road hasn't changed all that much, except they added a lane at some point in time. But there's still just not enough highway to accommodate the amount of cars coming through there. It's just a very, very busy place to work. So I worked there for a couple years, and then I became the resident state trooper in the town of Haddam,
okay,
here out of Troop F. So I did that for a couple years, and then I had an opportunity to go to the town of Old Lyme as the resident state trooper. So I did that for 3 years. Then after that, I said, okay, time for something else. So I went back to Troop F Patrol right here in Westbrook for about a year before I got promoted to sergeant in 2004. And then when you get promoted to sergeant, it's an automatic transfer. So I sent me down to Troop G in Bridgeport, where I was a newly promoted sergeant for a couple years. And I went to Troop I in Bethany for about a year and a half, and then back to Troop F in Westbrook, because it's where I live. I live in Clinton, so
yes,
it's relatively close. So I did that for quite a while. Then I had an opportunity to go to the lieutenant colonel staff. The lieutenant colonel is the number 2, basically leader of the state police.
Okay.
Up at state police headquarters. So I was on his staff for about a little over a year, and I learned a lot about the inner workings of the department. So after that, I came back to Troop F for a while, and then my career brought me back to the training academy a few years ago, where I was a sergeant on staff for a recruit training class. Which was very, very interesting. I was there for about a year, and I was able to really get involved with the training of new troopers and get them on board. And then I came back to Troop F for a little while. I was a resident state trooper sergeant, which I oversaw 5 towns, Haddam, Chester, Killingworth, Middlefield, Durham. I did that for a little while, and then I went down to Troop G 3 years ago, back to Bridgeport, mm-hmm. where I am currently what's called the administrative sergeant.
Yes.
So I am the jack of all trades and master of nothing. So I deal with just about everything at the barracks. I think with my career and my experience, I know how to get things done. So to me, it's been a phenomenal career, and I'm in a spot right now that I love.
I was going to say, I've seen the experience of you during the day.
Yeah, we did a little ride along.
As a jack of all trades.
Yeah, you were with me one day down at the Bridgeport barracks, and we had a good day and did a little ride along.
We did.
Yeah, and got involved in quite a few things in that one day.
We
yeah.
did.
Oh yeah.
We did.
The days go by very, very fast.
They do, and I'm sure. Like you said before, I'm sure the days are no one day is different than the next day, because you never know what you're going to walk into.
You never know, and that's kind of like the draw for this job, at least for me, It's that I like doing something different. I like meeting people. I like establishing relationships with people, whether it be in law enforcement, the courthouses, the Department of Transportation. I meet a lot of different people every single day.
Yeah.
And with that, you learn things and you see how things are done. And it's life's about learning.
Totally.
You're never going to know it all. And after 29 years, I still love learning every single day.
Speaking of learning and knowing things, what we're going to tell a little secret to our viewers and our listeners. What they don't know, where you are in Bridgeport, they also run the DOT cameras.
Correct. So Troop G, the State Police Barracks in Bridgeport, which is right off exit 27 off I-95.
Yeah.
It's the only state police barracks in the state that is in cooperation with the Department of Transportation.
Right.
So in the State Police Barracks dispatch area, we have our typical state police operations where you have a trooper always on the desk answering phone calls, dispatching troopers, along with 2 civilian dispatchers. So in addition to them, we have 3 Department of Transportation dispatchers who monitor all the highway cameras in Fairfield County and into Troop F's area in Middlesex County. So anything that happens, the multiple calls we get for car accidents or whatever, our DOT partners are able to bring up that location, zoom in on the accident before the trooper even arrives. So we have an idea if there's lane blockage, if we need tow trucks. So it's all about what's called quick clearance. So the idea is to start the motions going to get the highway cleared up to alleviate the traffic getting backed up for a significant period of time. So it's been that way since 1995. The State Police Barracks in Bridgeport used to be located in Westport. It did until 1995. They moved to a brand new building in Bridgeport. That's where the DOT came in with us. That was the whole reason behind it. They needed a much bigger facility to do this. And so yeah, since 1995, it's been a very successful program. It's one of the few in the country that are really combined like that, from what I'm understanding, dealing with the DOT people. And our DOT partners are phenomenal.
Are they?
We work so well together. It's really a great environment to work, and it's truly nothing but teamwork. That's what it comes down to. We all work very well together, and all in the same mission. Number one, to keep people safe, to provide the public safety for people, and to keep the highways clear, to keep transit going through. And because the highways slow down, the economy slows down because people, things aren't getting to where they have to get, either people going on vacation or goods and materials coming up through tractor trailers. It's a lot of things that really bog down when the traffic stops.
Sergeant Derry, would you mind sticking around for another segment?
I would love to.
We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Is it pretty?
Daddy,
It's pretty.
Maybe honestly,
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show, sitting here with Sergeant Rob Derry from the Connecticut State Police. Sergeant, welcome back.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks for sticking around. So we were talking a little bit about, in the first segment, police recruitment. Let's talk a little bit about more in detail about what it involves and what it entails.
Sure. So I can speak for the Connecticut State Police that we're going to be hiring quite a few troopers. At least the plan is now, over the next couple of years. Okay. Our numbers for staffing are really low right now. That has to do with a lot of retirements and things like that. But basically what it comes down to, if you're interested in law enforcement or specifically the Connecticut State Police, every couple of years they advertise open applications, which is all done online. If you go to the Connecticut State Police webpage, you'll see a section called recruiting, and that lays everything out for you as to what to expect, how the process works, and when you can sign up. So I would imagine you're going to be putting together another testing process. If I had to take a guess, I don't know for a fact, it'd probably maybe in the spring, but I know they are looking into doing that now, our selections and recruitment unit. So you want to become a state trooper. So what you do is once that application opens up, and it's only open for 2 or 3 weeks. So there's a lot of announcements out there through social media, and people who are interested can get like an update through our department. Can get like an email update.
Okay.
So if you go onto the webpage, and it kind of explains all that. So once the testing process begins and you apply and they give you a date, the first thing that you do in your step to become a state trooper is they give you a date, time, and location to report for a written examination. So that written examination involves just common sense questions. You don't have to have any law enforcement experience, any background in law enforcement. It's just common sense. And depending how you score on that, if you score high enough, they move you on to the next phase of the process pretty quickly, which is the physical fitness assessment.
Okay.
So that is depending on your age, there's a certain parameter of a goal you have to hit for each one of the segments, which is a 1.5 mile run, a 300-meter run, sit-ups, and push-ups. So you have to be able to at least do the bare minimum and pass all 4 of those to move on to the next portion. So as you go through the process, beginning with a written exam and then on to the physical fitness assessment, should you not pass any one of these along the way, then you're out of the process and you have to reapply it another time. So should you pass those 2, you move along a little bit later for what's called this polygraph examination.
Okay.
So the polygraph examination is a very extensive examination where you sit down with a state police trooper. We have a polygraph unit that we have a sergeant and troopers that are full-time. That's what they do with polygraphs. Some for criminal investigations, some for employment. They do a wide variety of things. So that polygraph examination really dives into your background. It's a very exhaustive exam to go through. And they dive into everything you've done in your past, to include your financial history, your driving history, your work history, your relationship history. They really gauge who you are through that. Now that polygraph examination rolls into what's called the background examination. So a state police detective will be assigned to do that prospective recruit or candidate's background investigation, which again is a very exhaustive investigation. It really, they do a lot of document searching for like financial records, make sure you pay your bills on time, that you don't go out on you don't not pay your bills. Your schooling, to see what your education level is like, how you did in school, how you behaved in school. They go around talking to your former employers, your neighbors, your family members. They do a home visit. They'll come to your house. I had my car. The trooper or detective who did mine way back in the day asked to go out to my car, and I opened my car to see if my car was clean and organized, or was it a big mess. They want to make sure your cars are registered, your license is valid, and you don't have a bad driving record. So it's really exhaustive. There's a lot of things that entails with that. Again, and you have to pass each one of these. So should you continue to be in that process, you do what's now a psychological investigation, or a psychological exam. The psychological exam is in 2 parts. One of it is a very lengthy, like a 600-question written exam, which is basically to gauge your personality traits. And there's a science behind it, which that's not my wheelhouse, so I couldn't tell you all the background.
Right.
But it's definitely very important to have that, because keep in mind, if and when you become a Connecticut State Trooper upon successful graduation of the State Police Academy, you are given an awesome amount of authority and responsibility. You can take somebody's liberty very quickly, and if you're going to have to do that, then you better have a very good reason to do that. To make an arrest or to exercise your police powers. You can't do that. You can't do that without really knowing your stuff. And that's why when we go through all this process, we want to make sure we get the best quality candidate. And our standards are pretty high. And it really needs to be.
Exactly.
So after you go through that and get back to the exam, so you do the psychological examination with the written exam, then they bring you back and you actually sit down one-on-one with a psychologist, and they ask you a bunch of questions and they do an evaluation on you to make sure that you have the mental capacity and the maturity to do this job. And the final portion of that selection process is the medical physical, which is like when you go to your doctors to make sure you're physically healthy, blood work, you name it. They check everything out. They do drug testing, the whole 9 yards. So should you pass all that, now you're put on a list of everybody who passed. And your packet that it's put together based on all those tests goes before the State Police Selections Committee, which is made up of troopers of all different ranks. And they go through the packet and they do a vote saying yes, no, this person will make a good candidate for a State Police trooper trainee, or no, based on this information, this person's not going to meet our criteria. So should you get selected and you get offered a position, then you go to the State Police Academy, which is located in Meriden right now. So the State Police Academy is 28 weeks long. It's a live-in academy. You get there 5:30 in the morning on a Monday, and you're there till about 9, 10 o'clock on a Friday, with very little contact to the outside world. You're so busy. It's very much militaristic. There's a lot of physical fitness, a lot of in-your-face yelling. I mean, if you look at the Marine Corps recruit training, it looks similar to that at the beginning.
Gotcha.
The male recruits shave their heads completely bald. The female recruits have to have very, very short, close-cropped hair. And there's a method behind that. It's not just to scream at people. Again, you're given an awful amount of authority and when you're out there as a state trooper, so I want to make sure that you can exercise that and you have the capability to control your emotions and also to think on your feet pretty quickly. The academy is just go, 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 go. And there's a lot of academics involved with that. So the academics is also a big portion because we have several people that academically fail out of the academy. Right now, our State Police Academy has about a 20 to 25% attrition rate, meaning that if we start, say, with 100 recruits, we'll be very lucky to graduate 75 or so, because people either quit early on because it's not for them, because it's too intense, or academically they just don't cut it. So yeah, our standards are pretty high, but again, when you walk across that stage after successfully completing the State Police Academy, it's one of the few days that you're going to remember for your whole life.
Exactly.
You know, it's a very proud day. Our graduation ceremonies are pretty cool to see, the way that it goes on. And it's a very meaningful position. And like I said, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it just like I did it.
You remember your graduation day?
Oh, like it was yesterday.
All right.
Yeah, my grandfather, who has since passed away in 2009, pinned my badge on my uniform, my graduation on stage.
Wow.
And the colonel at the time, who's the head of our department, he shook my hand. He said, "I worked with your grandfather, and he was a great guy, and I'm glad to have you aboard." So it's like a big family sometimes, because there are a lot of people that get in law enforcement who have law enforcement in their family.
Right.
There's quite a few, actually. So when you grow up in that environment, and the environment is not for everybody. The law enforcement environment is not for everybody, because the job just goes, and you got to be ready to work. And but again, it's been very rewarding. Anybody who's interested in law enforcement, I highly recommend it. I talk to people all over the place about law enforcement, state police recruiting, and everything. And I'm always here and very reachable to discuss these type of things.
Exactly. Typical day for you, what's it like, or does it depend on the day?
Well, for me, at this point in my career, being an administrative sergeant, it's a lot different than it was years ago when I was a trooper on patrol. So for me, it's kind of boring, but I will tell you the typical day of a trooper is that you are assigned a patrol. Depending on what area, what troop you work out of, it doesn't make a difference. If you're a trooper on patrol, you're assigned a patrol area. So that patrol area is your area of responsibility. So when I was up at Troop L in Litchfield as a new trooper, I was responsible for 3 towns all by myself. The towns of Kent, Warren, and Washington. So I was the only trooper for those towns on my patrol. But those towns are very sparsely populated, very big geographically. Right. But there's not a lot of population in those towns. No. A lot of rural area, but you were it. So your backup is a long way away. So and again, that goes down to our training, where troopers, the old adage is troopers ride alone. Right. Because we don't have partners in the car. We're by ourselves. We're on patrol. It's us. And some of these rural areas, you can go somewhere where it could be a little dicey. And obviously, sometimes you go to situations where people aren't really happy to see you. Yeah. Because we're going to a lot of negative things, whether it be some sort of altercation or something where alcohol's involved and that inflames people's behavior. So we go there. We have to be able to take charge very quickly. Yeah. And especially when you're in those rural areas. So again, it goes back to our training where we have to be able to handle that. But again, every day there's no really typical day. So you handle your patrol. It can be very quiet. It can be very quiet, not much going on. Or you could be going from one thing to another, to another, to another. And God forbid, the worst thing we have to deal with is fatality and motor vehicle accidents. Yeah. And unfortunately, we deal with those all too often. Where I personally, and this is the absolute worst part of my job, and I've been saying this for years, is having to go to a family's house to inform them that a loved one has passed away. I've had to do that all too often over the years, and it's just one of those things that you just never get used to, and
Exactly.
it's just hard. It's hard.
It is.
And that's where the whole, law enforcement, it's called hazardous duty position, because you deal with a lot of hazardous things, whether it be on the roadway, dealing with people who aren't too happy to see you and don't want to, listen to you, and you have to exercise some sort of use of force to keep things under control, or do things like that, or like I mentioned, go make a death notification, which is absolutely horrible. But those type of things, they weigh on you after a while. Every job's got its pluses and minuses. You have to have the right mentality for this job, because if you let it wear on you, it's going to mentally wear you out.
Yeah.
It truly does. So a lot of us do some sort of exercise and program. Like I go to a gym where I work out hard at least 3 to 4 days a week, and the instructor just kicks you. It's tough. It's tough, but that's where you kind of get revigorated, and any stress you may have, exercise is the best way to get rid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's again, I'll talk highly of the state police from now to the day I'm not here anymore. It's been really, really good, and a lot of good people. I have a lot of good friends that I met throughout the years.
Yes.
And it's like a family.
It is.
It's like a family. I know if something happened to me or my family, I know the other troopers that I work with that I'm very tight with, to include our command staff, will be right there to help my family out.
Rob Derry from the Connecticut State Police, thanks for coming down. We'll
Thank
see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
On behalf of Rob Derry, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.